Cool. Well, first of all, thank you all so much for joining us. Welcome to our Fireside Chat from Passion Project to Dedicated Design System team with Patrycja. So it's really great to see you all joining us from around the world. I saw Stockholm, Ukraine, Chicago. I'm in California. Patricia's in Greece. So really all around the world. It's so great to see you all. I'm Jocelyn, the head of community at Supernova. If you haven't heard of Supernova before, it is an end-to-end design system management platform where you can create beautifully branded custom documentation, connect all your data sources, and also automate code delivery for your design system. Before we jump into the fireside chat today, a few basic housekeeping items. So one, the webinar is going to be recorded and it'll be shared with you via email later this week. You can also enable automated captions if you'd like. And also feel free to chat with other participants in the chat like you all are doing right now. But if you have any questions specifically for Patrycja, please use the Q&A function so we don't miss anything in the chat. And we'll also be saving time at the end for audience questions. So welcome again. I'm super excited to introduce our guest for the day. We are joined by Patrycja, who is the principal design system engineer at Babbel. She's based in Berlin, but originally from Poland, and is extremely passionate about building design systems. She's currently building the design system at Babbel and has previously worked on them at both Contentful and Brainly. At Brainly, she helped kickstart and build the very first version of Pencil, which is Brainly's design system, as an undergrad initiative. And we'll dive more into what that looks like during our conversation. In general, though, she aims to bridge the gap between design and engineering and focuses on listening to users and finding solutions with different tools, processes, communications, and documentation. Outside of her day job, Patrycja actively participates in the broader design system community, planning and attending meetups with the design systems community chapter in Berlin. She's also spoken at various conferences, including Into Design Systems, and most recently at Design Matters in Copenhagen last week. And also really fun, she's also a musician and started her career in tech later in life. So she's hoping to give back to the community and share her experiences by mentoring others and sharing with folks like us on this fireside chat. She specifically loves tech that makes life and creativity easier, and she also loves taking road trips with her little van. So please join me in welcoming Patrycja to the stage. We're really honored to have you, and I'm really looking forward to diving into your career and learning from your experiences, since I think it's so common where some folks start working on design systems more as an undergrad initiative or a passion project before they really get to join a full-time team and really dedicate their time to that.
Hi everyone. Wow, what a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to chat and share some experiences that I had so far with design systems. So yeah, I'm really flattered. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's start from the beginning. How did you first get into design systems, even as more of an undergrad initiative? When did you start working on that?
So yeah, as you mentioned, I actually started career in tech quite late in my life. So it's been 10 years. And yeah, I think, but at the beginning, like I was building websites for my friends. And then, I got some first job, and I remember e-commerce agency. So basically building shops. But this is how I got into front-end work. And then I got my first job in a product, which was Brainly. And when I joined the team, front-end team was really small. There was only 5 of us back then. And I think that was kind of like the beginning of real front-end work and real front-end learning. So I've met amazing mentors back then, and I saw myself progressing really, really fast due to the fact that the team was really small and we were just like working together in every part of the product. But yeah, when I joined, folks from the front end group, they've started to build a style guide. So the library of components that were kind of reused across the product back then. And that was kind of like a beginning of the design system work that happened. at Brainly, but we were just a small group. And with Patrycja Radaczynska, who is actually here, hey Pat, we have been working together on this first version of Pencil. We actually joined in the same moment, the company, and we kind of worked together with Konrad as well on the first version of Pencil. So it was really underground side gig. We have been trying to push this forward, especially Patrycja was kind of main advocate for building the team and building design system from more like a design side. So yeah, that was my first experience when it comes to the design system work. And then I moved to Berlin. I joined Contentful as a front-end / UI engineer. And yeah, I've been working on the design system partially as well. So not really full-time on the design system, but I was part of the product team. And then, you know, some time or some percentage of my time I could dedicate to the design system work, which I think is just a reality for so many engineers out there who are actually working just, 20% of their time on some design system topics. So that was my reality for a long time as well. And now I was lucky to join dedicated team. And of course, that's a different perspective. Of course, some disadvantages as well, or some struggles, but I think that was something that I was waiting for a long time. So yeah.
When you were at Brainly, was it the three of you working on it all part-time and just as like fractional work?
Yeah, that was the beginning. I think so for the first 3 years, I've been there for 3 years, and shortly after I left the company, the actual design system team, like dedicated design system team, was formed and founded. But for those 3 years, we have been working as a side gig, and of course, other engineers from different teams were also contributing. So not only three of us, but I think yeah, I think we were the most dedicated to the topic back
Yeah.
then.
How did you manage your time between your regular day job as a front-end engineer at Brainly and then also working on design system on the side?
Well, I think it also requires some juggling different topics within the product team, but I think some of the design system topics might be incorporated to the product work. So in general, I've met many people who were open to the topic, even, like stakeholders, like product managers or engineering managers who are open to give this part of my time to dedicate to that topic. And sometimes we're even able to incorporate some of the design system topics into the actual product work. So let's say it was a new feature for our users and we had to build some component, and then maybe it was just easier to build it directly to the library or rebuild something or incorporate some sort of work that was needed for the design system into the product work. But of course, this is like happy path and good scenario. But most of the time it's just, well, here and there when I had some time, then do this additional work for design system or for the library. And therefore, it is hard to predict how much time I'm going to have given the priorities of the product team. And I think many engineers are actually struggling with that they might be open and they would like to contribute, but the priority of the product is always higher. So it is hard for them to kind of juggle those different responsibilities.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Speaking of that, how did you convince people, like other product managers or just the folks you're working with, to care about design systems and allow you to kind of carve out that 10-20% to work on it?
I think many engineering managers are actually open to that. I mean, more and more people are actually seeing the value of the design system, or shared or reused resources that design system provides. So I think over time it just became easier to work on that. And I think we have been trying to prove the value of the design system over and over within the design, but also in the engineering, like the amount of time that engineering team can save within the reused library of components or tokens. It's just something that it's, when presented to stakeholders, I think it becomes pretty obvious that it's a worth investment. So I didn't experience a situation where people are actually blocking this initiative. But again, it's always a matter of conversation, I would say. The conversation between the stakeholders and priorities, and being open to that, the situation might change and priority of the product might be just higher than the design system. And of course, it happened to me over and over, both at Brainy and in Contentful, where priorities of the product were just higher, and I had to stop my work on the design system topics and focus on some products topics that my team was working on. So it's always kind of like trying to compromise where we can, cut corners, and but overall people are open to also our development as engineers. So if I am passionate about certain topics, I hope my engineering manager or my mentor will also be open for me to kind of dive into this. So yeah, I think it's a matter of conversation at the end.
That makes sense. Are there any specific conversations that you had with stakeholders or managers that kind of like continues to stick out for you as a really powerful one?
I must say I've been quite lucky when it comes to engineering managers. I mean, first part of my career, I've been working without engineering managers at all, because Brainy, when I joined, we're a really small team. The structure was really flat. So there was, I had more like mentors from my peers, colleagues that were helping me out or mentoring me. And then when the team grew and we had more like a complex structure of the team, then we kind of got to work with engineering managers. And that was really great experience, because I've learned over time that my role as, of course, engineer is to meet certain expectations, but also I noticed that most of my great engineering managers were also people who wanted to give something to me, like give me support and being there for me. So it was always a priority for them to get my development or my career as a first focus for them. So I think I've been very lucky when it comes to that.
That's awesome. And great to hear that you had such wonderful engineering managers.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know that it's not always the case, and the reality might be completely different. That's why I think I was really, really lucky over
That's
those
great.
last couple of years. Yeah.
What was the biggest learning that you took away from your time when you were working on design systems more as like an undergrad initiative and passion project?
Well, yeah, I think it might be very hard. It can be very frustrating, especially when someone's really passionate about a topic and there is no time, or no one really understands this, or people will say that there is no need for dedicated design system team. I think founding the team and trying to find a way to build a dedicated design system team was something that I was struggling with over last couple of years, both at Brainy and then in Contentful, where there was no team and we really strongly believed that we need one. And it can be so disappointing and so difficult to accept that a company don't want to really invest in that. And I think so I think I've learned to be more patient with certain topics, of course, and to some extent, because it is hard, and I understand that it might be, ups and downs when it comes to frustration and disappointment. But I also learned a lot, like how to build connections with different people and build a community inside the organization. So design system overall, I believe it's a great place to build a powerful community within the company. So it's more like an open source culture of contributions. So building this kind of welcoming and inclusive environment. And it's so much fun to be able to kind of communicate with different people and trying to understand them, both engineers and designers and people with different skills. And it's so great. And I think I've learned a lot when it comes to building those connections and connecting those people with different backgrounds. And even when it's a side gig, I think it's still a huge part of the role or a huge part of this side gig.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like all the things that you normally do on a dedicated design system team are only more important when you're not doing it as your full-time job. So you really get to flex those muscles and learn how to connect with folks and build relationships and really get them to care about the design system.
Definitely.
So what's some advice that you would give to people who are in the same situation as you are right now, where they're kind of working on it in a part-time capacity or maybe on top of their full-time job, so in addition?
Yeah, I feel your pain. This is what I can say. And I think it's just, I know that it might be difficult, but it is a process. And I guess, like, I hope and I believe that there are teams that dedicated teams out there who are waiting for you to join at some point. So I think this work, this design system, even if it's underground initiative, it's really important work. I would say it would be great if you can see this value or validate this your work somehow to give yourself like a hug that, okay, it's worth it. It's maybe a glue work, or maybe it's not visible. People might not appreciate that, but I think they do. And if you reach out to them and see, different connections, or see how they use the design system that you built, maybe you're going to see the value of it. And I think it's important to keep going, to kind of believe that it still makes sense, even if it's side gig.
Yeah, totally. And I think one thing you're also saying is like finding value and finding other people who believe in you. And I think there are a lot of people in design systems in the same boat, in the same situation. So if you're having a hard time finding that at your company, I think finding that in the broader design systems community is also another way to go, talking to people who get the struggle.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I think even within the organization where you are, you will find people who are really appreciating your work, and they really use it on a daily basis, and they cannot imagine, their work without those things that you are building for them. So it is an important work, even if it's a work that we are doing part-time or 20% of our time.
Yeah. So now that you're on a dedicated design system team, what has that change been like for you? What's been the biggest difference between working on something as like the dedicated principal design system engineer versus working as on design systems as a passion project?
So yeah, definitely dedicating 100% of my time to design system. That's kind of like a main difference, I would say. I was kind of laughing that I'm doing similar work, but in, of course, much more responsibilities right now. But I'm kind of have a title to it, and I get paid for doing this work and not the other kind of work. So I think it's I have much more things to do right now, especially now when I joined Babbel and we just formed the team right when I joined. I think I had so much learning during this time because we were just two of us, like Ralph and myself, back then in November. And we have been working on the strategy and the next initiatives and more from like also research, like where we are, what we are dealing with, what kind of design system is there, if there is any, or what kind of legacy, what people are using. So all this kind of like a research phase. And but yeah, dedicating 100% of my time to that, and having more influence on the strategy, I think it's really fulfilling and rewarding for me. So that's probably a main difference. I think we can. I can say that I can influence the strategy for the design system, and then being part of the execution. So sometimes it wasn't the reality back then. Back, I don't know, in a couple of years ago, when I really wanted to build bigger initiatives or push forward bigger initiatives, but there was no chance to do it without dedicated time or resources or team. So yeah, now I think we have more influence.
Yeah, that makes sense. Were there people working on the design system at Babbel more underground? Like was there already something going on before you joined full time on the dedicated team?
Yeah, that of course there was. The story is so similar to the ones that I saw before. So on the engineering side, there was a dedicated group for some time. I don't really know the full story. Some engineers who were more involved in maintaining the libraries. And then on the design side, there were two designers who were really passionate about the topic, and they were pushing forward the initiative of introducing semantic tokens on to the whole product. But when we joined, it was obvious that that's going to be a first initiative that we're going to try to kind of push forward to like make it to the final line, because it was really hard for underground initiative to introduce semantic tokens across the whole product, because it
Yeah.
never became the priority for the product itself. So yeah, we could observe how long it took to actually push forward this initiative for a group of really passionate people. So yeah, that was kind of like a story of the design system at Babbel. So we picked it up, and now we are trying to build the team, and also trying to figure it out what we're going to do with some legacy stuff, and working like a real dedicated team. So yeah, but it's great that some work was already done, and amazing foundation for us to move forward as well.
Yeah, and now you already have some champions in other parts of the organization who can help you kind of spread your actual design system initiatives around the company.
Totally, and this is amazing actually, because this building we are still super small team. We just have now actually two more engineers. We are collaborating with mobile platform team who's building our design system components for native mobile. But other than that, we are really small team. Now one more designer joined. And then we need all those advocates in the product who are spreading the word and also contributing to libraries. So it's great to have this foundation, and some part of the advocacy work that is so needed in general in the organization was already done. So yeah, amazing work that folks have been doing before we joined.
So what does the structure of the design system team at Babbel look like right now? I think you mentioned a couple of engineers and a couple of designers.
So design system team was founded by design department. So we are part of the design department. And so Ralph, who is, he's also have mainly design experience. He's a director of the design system. And I joined as a principal engineer. And then we have two more front-end engineers who are mainly working on the React components and design tokens library. And then we have one more design system designer, one freelancer designer who's working right now with us, a temporary. But yeah, 100% of the time we would have probably two engineers and one designer and Ralph and myself, so 5 people. And yeah, hopefully we will be able to scale and maybe get some mobile force to our team, because right now we are collaborating with more like a platform team. But in the future, we would probably hope to extend the team. Let's see how
Yeah,
it goes.
good luck. I hope you're able to. What part
Thanks.
of building the design system or maintaining the design system are you all at right now? I know you mentioned semantic tokens at the very beginning, and then also working with the platform team and wanting to go into mobile. But what part of the design system are you all focused on, I guess, in Q4 of 2023?
Yeah. So yeah, we have a couple of big topics ahead of us. So we just released the dark mode. So it was all like a semantic tokens initiative, introducing the semantic tokens into the product. And it was actually great because when we joined, we did like this research phase for first couple of months. And then let's say from March till summer, we were trying to kind of push forward this design tokens topic. And this way also advocate for the design system, because therefore, whenever we introduce any changes to tokens, we automatically gain those updates in our apps. So we were able to prove the value in a way to our stakeholders as well, like business. So, okay, this maybe it makes sense to actually invest in that, which was great. So we get more support from different stakeholders when it comes to the upcoming initiatives. Right now, we are working on something quite big, and we have a lot of work, but yeah, mainly focusing on building components and documentation, which was kind of lacking. And we are trying to consolidate documentation for designers and engineers in one place. Due to the fact that we also started to build components for Android and iOS, then we want to streamline the documentation in one place for all our engineering users, so iOS, Android, web, and then designers also in one place. And we actually use Supernova for that. So yeah, that's
Wonderful. How is that
yeah.
going for you all?
It's great. I mean, we have been evaluating different tools, and at the end, we figured Supernova is actually meeting all the expectations, especially when it comes to management of tokens. I think that's really wonderful part of our process. So yeah, I think it's great. It's actually working pretty nice for us. So yeah, Q4 is going to be all about documentation, I would say, and finalizing the libraries of components, at least the first iteration, so first set of components that we had to figure it out. So yeah, hopefully we're gonna maybe make it public at some point, I hope. But yeah, for now, I'm not able to, unfortunately, share anything.
That's okay. Sounds, if you're working on a lot of documentation and tokens, it sounds like you're spending a lot of time in Supernova, which is awesome.
Yes.
What else is part of your tech stack?
So we use Token Studio to manage tokens, and then we export variables to Figma. From there, we connect to Supernova, but we also connect to our GitHub from Tokens Studio. So we export from Tokens Studio to our design tokens library. And then we use a style dictionary to export tokens for different platforms. So we build a pipeline ourselves due to the certain requirements that different platform has. And therefore, it's just easier for us to kind of maintain it our own repo when it comes to that. And of course, we kind of package this and for clients to be able to consume it in different ways. And then we built React components for web. Yeah, we would love to move to only to TypeScript, but right now we also have clients who are not necessarily using TypeScript yet. So yeah, we are supporting both. So yeah, and then on the mobile side, we have dedicated libraries for iOS and Android. So yeah, lots of technical work and lots of things in Figma. And of course, we built a library for our designers as well. So so yeah, right now we are not focusing on building the connection between Figma and our React components, because I think, yeah, right now it's not our main priority. So we keep Figma library and then React library as separate entities. Hopefully at some day we will be able to sync this the same way like we do with tokens.
Gotcha.
But yeah, let's see.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. You mentioned stakeholders before, so I definitely want to take some time to talk about how you align stakeholders across design and development. I know this is something that you're really passionate about, and design systems are really all about connecting that gap, bridging that gap between design and dev. And a lot of the people that I've personally talked to have come from more of a product design perspective because that's their background, but you are an engineer, started this as a front-end engineer. So I'd love to hear more about it from your developer perspective. In general, like how do you talk about design systems to other engineers? How do engineers benefit from like a super robust design system?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Most of the engineers that I had a pleasure to work with are actually advocates of design system. Maybe they don't really have time to work on the design system or dedicate time to contribute to the design system, but they understand the value. And most of the times that I've talked to them, many times that I think I noticed that due to the pressure in the product teams, they might go around design system if the design system is not meeting their expectations, or it's too difficult to use, or there are some issues. They might choose to go around it due to the time pressure normally.
Got it.
But overall, I think there's always, I mean, I was maybe lucky, but I think overall there was always a good reception of design system libraries within engineering community. But I would say it's important to be visible in this community, in the organization. So being an advocate of the design system or being a face of the design system is something that I'm definitely doing in Babbel as well, or I'm trying to do. So when I joined and the team, and taking into consideration that the team is located in the product design, so it's not part of the engineering organization, this makes me kind of outside of the engineering org in a way. So even stronger, I felt like I have to be present. So I have to advocate for the design system, making sure that the people are aware that we are there and we are always open to help, or we can always make some sort of introduction to the design system, or we can talk. So it's really important to kind of show yourself as a advocate of the design system in the engineering meetings. So one of the first things that I did was on the recurring front-end chapter meetings to have like a dedicated recurring slot for the design system updates, and always having these channels to communicate what is happening with the libraries, new updates on many channel, over communicating really. But it is important because I think due to the fact that it's sometimes really small team working somewhere in the background, doing a lot of glue work, people might just not really be aware. So it's kind of important to be there and present. I think also working with engineering managers and trying to figure it out if there's any time that the team might dedicate to some technical work related to the design system. So trying to find advocates also within different product teams, more on like leader level. I think that was something that really, it was kind of important to do. And I definitely try to do it on a daily basis.
Yeah, for people who don't have those champions yet or haven't really gotten in front of their other engineering teams, what would you recommend as like a first step? What are some practical tips that they can take away?
To share the progress of the design system, or I guess like being present in the community. Like if there is a front-end community, that's one of the first. If the, I mean, in my majority of the cases, front-end engineers going to be open to the topic. They are aware, so it's kind of like an first group of people who can support the design system as well, because they also really benefit from it. So I think it's great to kind of find this place where the design system can be communicated. So that might be one of it. Then maybe have like a dedicated design system channel where you can update folks about the new things that are done in the library or in the design system in general. Then for some, I mean, we are not doing this due to the time actually, but having a newsletter might be an option. I think many teams out there are actually doing that, but it is time consuming, so it's kind of difficult to just manage and find time for it. But maybe it would work. We used to do like at Contentful. I remember we had office hours, recurring slot for folks to kind of sign in for office hours and chat about design systems. But making yourself just available, trying to be there if anyone would like to chat. And at the end, people do. I mean, it takes some time for folks to get used to this, or find a good moment. Some people are not comfortable with like publicly maybe speaking about certain things, so sometimes it's just private conversation on Slack. Or I think I see this. It also takes some time to build this trust and visibility, I would say.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like trust is one of those things that always takes time. It's really hard to get trust with people, but it's so easy to lose it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you've heard from other engineers when it comes to design systems?
So I think, as I said, many engineers actually benefit a lot from the design system. So they see many things that a lot of maybe business folks sometimes not see, like the reusability or consistency is something that engineers often appreciate in the design system libraries, or something that they don't have to build over and over again. But I think many engineers consider design system as just a library of components, and often they miss the aspect of this common ground between different areas of organization, not only design and engineering, but in the future, many different people who are just interacting with the visual language of the organization is actually interacting with the design system, ideally. So marketing or content design, whoever is actually touching this visual language will interact with it. So building something really reusable and consistent for so many different stakeholders is much more than just a library. And I think this is something that often engineers might miss. So yeah, that comes to my mind. Other than that, I think, yeah, they are quite good advocates of the design system in the organization, I would say.
That's wonderful. It's always great to have advocates to help push the design system and the initiative and getting other engineers to also use it, since like you mentioned, there's only a couple of you, but there's a lot of product teams.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And it takes time, but I think it's just building this culture around the project and yeah, being visible, open to conversations and meeting people. It's just like design system work is really all about people and talking to them, meeting them and being open to different conversations, etc. So it's really filled with meetings and people and interactions. And yeah, I guess that's something that over time benefits us, and this way we build this kind of community around it.
For sure. And when you're talking with all of these people, have you found that talking to designers or product managers and developer stakeholders is different? Like, do you have to come to the table with different stories or value props?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, due to the fact that I think I kind of came to this field from something completely different. And when I started to code, I didn't really understand the jargon. I didn't understand I didn't know the coding culture in a way. And I was always trying to explain myself things like in a super simple way, like I don't have any experience. And many times I think it is a challenge to find this common ground between people with different backgrounds. So I guess, like, of course, if I talk with engineers, we sometimes talk very technical details, but we also, I'm as an engineer, and even last week and being on the design conference, it's such a wonderful experience to actually share something that you work on in a way that someone else with completely different background can actually consume and understand. So it's also, design system is also about finding this common ground between different language, different experience. But of course, it is kind of, I would say it requires some experience to talk to different stakeholders, obviously, but we can gain that. And I think I'm still learning how to, talk to business stakeholders in a way that they can see the value of the design system, or it is a learning process, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. There's always so much to learn.
Yeah, of course.
It's never
Totally.
ending.
Definitely.
Cool. Before we move on to audience questions, we have a couple. I do have one final question for you. What's a hot take that you have related to design systems? What's something controversial that you believe about them that others may not agree with?
Well, mm, hmm. Well, it's not controversial, but I would say not every organization needs a design system. And maybe sometimes it's okay to not have one, that's for sure. But overall, I mean, working on the design system and connecting those dots is definitely really fulfilling experience, at least for me. You might need to talk to people and connecting dots and being, all the time present and available, etc. So it's probably not for everyone. But if it is, then yeah, definitely fulfilling experience, even if it's a part-time gig.
Yeah, that makes sense. And thank you for sharing. So we have a couple of minutes left, so let's dive into the audience questions. So just as a reminder, please share your questions in the Q&A, and please make sure that these questions are specifically for Patrycja. If you have any questions about Supernova itself, you can reach out to our support team. And feel free to upvote any of the questions that you have, and then I'll kind of go through them based on which ones have the most upvotes. But first one, as a small team, how did you and your team manage being a product developer and also focused on design system development?
Yeah, so I think at the beginning, when I was working at Brainly, we were really small team. The style guide, so the library of components was owned by front-end engineers, but we are just 5 of us, so it was really easy to kind of we were all contributing to this library back then. But then when we were more in dedicated in product teams, then it was harder for us to find the time. So I was kind of trying to incorporate this design system work or design system related work into my product team work somehow. It's not always possible. It wasn't really always realistic to do it, but sometimes it actually worked. So talking to engineering manager about, oh, maybe there is some slot in the sprint where I could incorporate some work from the design system, or there are some certain tickets that I would be interested in related to the design system that I could work on, or maybe there is actually some technical work that might help my team within given feature. So I don't know, we need to improve some feature, and this feature is coming from the design system library. Maybe this is a way where I can actually contribute to the design system library. So finding this kind of like a way to incorporate this work into product team work might be something that might work. And then in Contentful, it was more official, so I had kind of like more time for the design system. It was still part-time job, but I could more officially incorporate this design system work into my team's work. So I had 20% of my time, and I was trying to be very strict about it and say, okay, 20% of the sprint I'm going to dedicate to the design system. Those are the tickets that I'm going to work on, etc. So talking to my engineering manager, but also trying to be very strict about it. So if that's a side gig, and I have some percentage of my time that I could dedicate to that, then I would like to incorporate that into my current sprint or however your team is working. But yeah, I think having this clarity and communicating this to your engineering manager or whoever is a leader in your team might be just helpful to set your expectations and being very clear about it to the leader so they can also help you out within this management of the time. Hope this helps.
That makes a lot of sense. So one, finding that Venn diagram, the overlap between your product feature work and what the design system needs. And then two, if you can carve out dedicated time within a sprint or with your engineering manager to let them know you're going to focus on the design system.
Totally.
So the next question is, prior to implementing a design system, product teams often prioritize the rapid development of features and getting their products live. However, once you've established a design system, how can you ensure that product teams enthusiastically embrace and consistently use the design system in their work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Hmm. So, yeah, I think often we can see that, I mean, we are not there yet at Babbel, but I think I might have seen that in previous project, like in Contentful, where design system was quite well adopted, it was established, but teams were not really contributing that much to the design system. It was also difficult to say if they are really working around the design system library. So we didn't really know how many new components are out there, what they are building, because the communication between product teams and design system group was not very efficient. So we were not really getting this feedback from product. And I think building this feedback loop with product is quite important part of the puzzle, to be able to know where the design system works and where it doesn't work for the product team. Because I think design system might not work for them. They might need to, detach it in Figma or build something around it or build something custom because it we not meet their expectations. So building this feedback loop with them might be a way to improve and kind of push forward the design system work that you are doing in your team, and then build also this enthusiasm in the product because they have some needs that can be finally met within this work. So I'm not sure if I'm actually answering your question, but I think maybe focusing of building this feedback loop with the product itself, who is or your user or design system users, might actually help.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is like understanding the problems that the product teams are having and then using that feedback loop to understand how the design system or is solving those problems or maybe isn't solving those problems. And I think if it's not solving those problems, that could be why they're not embracing it consistently and using it consistently, but understanding that root cause is really key.
Yeah.
When establishing a design system function within a company, would you recommend it following more of a horizontal structure or a vertical organization structure? And I think what they mean by this is having like a vertical team all in one place or having folks kind of horizontally dotted across the organization.
Mm. So I think this in the perfect world, this probably federation model works quite well, whereas the core team that is able to push forward bigger initiatives related to the design system and dedicate 100% of their time, and then building folks with product teams in different places of organization to have the contribution model built around the core team and actual contribution and feedback from different places. But that's an ideal scenario. I never experienced that myself in my life, so I don't know. It sounds great. I know that for folks out there, it worked pretty well. A good example would be Brainy. Probably, they with over a long period of time, they actually built this sort of model in their team. But yeah, I didn't have a chance to work with that. So I would say in many organizations, this folks in different places who are actually forming a group that is loose and contributing to the design system is most of the scenarios that I saw myself. So it's not really a structure. It's just a crew who is trying to push forward the design system topics within the organization. But yeah, if I would have a choice, I would probably go for this. And this, I hope we will be able to build this at Babbel at some point, to have like a core team, which we already have, and then build the contributions around it. So strong advocates within different places of the organization who can support the design system.
I love that. And I hope you're able to build that at Babbel as well.
I hope so too. Yes.
There are a couple of questions related to adoption and education. I know we only have a minute left, so really quick summary of the question is, what are some of the ways you measure adoption of the design system and use that to justify the use of these resources? And I think similarly, how do you educate those teams who aren't experienced with the design system to care about it?
Yeah, so I think, well, the measuring of the adoption of the design system, we are actually not there yet. We are trying to really push forward the adoption right now of the design system libraries. So it's an ongoing process, and I think the next bigger milestone for us would be to figure out how we can actually measure things and justify the usage, or drop some things or deprecated things. We are still working on deprecation model, and there are so many things ahead of us. So I don't think that we are there yet. So when it comes to the advocacy, that was the second part of the question, right?
Yeah, how do you educate people from other teams to get buy-in?
Right. Yeah. So I think what we've tried, for example, we are engineers who were joining our team this year. And myself also, I onboard myself in one of the product teams. So I've spent a month with a product team as a front-end engineer, trying to understand where they are, what they are doing, and at the same time trying to advocate for the design system as well. So being an advocate in the design system, a design system advocate in the product team. And I think it's one of the many strategies that you can have. But I guess, like, as I mentioned before, being very much present, over communicate design system, trying to reach out to team, get to know them, what they are building, what they are facing, what kind of issues they're trying to solve, being aware who is actually not using design system libraries, and then trying to get to know them and figure it out why they are not using it. And there are so many things, but they are really you need to know your organization and teams around you to answer questions like why they are not really in favor of the design system. So yeah, over communicating.
Yeah, that seems to be a common thread, is communicate some more, and then also just being clear with whoever you're talking to, whether that's your manager or your peers or your consumers. Communication seems to be super key to design systems.
Definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are over time. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And an extra thank you to Patrycja for joining us and sharing your career journey and talking us through how you're creating a design system at Babbel. I know there were some questions about adoption and education. So really early sneak peek, we haven't actually announced it, but our next expert panel will actually be around measuring adoption and education. So do tune in for that. It'll be later in October, and we'll share more about that on Supernova socials. But thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Patrycja, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you again for having me. It was a huge pleasure. I hope it was somehow helpful for community. And yeah, I'm really flattered to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.